Good afternoon, Dina. It's so good to see you.
So great to see you, Rachel. So glad to be back here.
I know.
So grateful for everyone who's been watching our podcast or whatever our video series.
Yep, this thing.
Yeah, we're really grateful for your support.
Yeah, it's been great to hear feedback from people both in the chronic illness community and also I think our friends and family who have watched it and had a lot of nice things to say. So again, we really appreciate that and we don't want to hear any of your criticism.
We do want
We
to
do.
hear
If it's
constructive
constructive, we'll take it.
criticism.
We're
Constructive,
more
yeah.
thick-skinned than I let on. Uh, One thing that I have been thinking about today is so I'll set the stage with it's been a busy week with family stuff, and while I would like to pretend that today was full of like really productive, morally uplifting activities, I spent a good chunk of it browsing eBay looking for discounted semi-designer boots, like shoes to wear for the winter. This again is someone who I'm not bedbound, I'm not housebound, but I'm not like going out a ton. And yet I still keep up with like a good deal of fashion stuff and feel this bizarre compulsion to like buy new things. And I'm wearing a, like a thoroughly ridiculous top that I just enjoy because I found it thrifted.
A super cute top.
Thank you. I feel like an exotic bird because it has these like ridiculous sleeves whenever I wear it. But I'm scouring the internet for discounted boots. I go up to my closet. I have plenty of clothes. I don't need clothes, but there's still some part of me that doesn't want to let go of that piece of who I thought I was going to be or who I was before I got sick that would be out in the world, going out, going to events, going shopping, wearing makeup, doing my hair, things that I do on a very infrequent basis. And it made me wonder how much do we hold on to our pre-illness self or our sort of idealized version of what our lives would look like without being sick, and whether or not that's a good thing.
Such a good question. I feel like there are many layers here. Um, I totally resonate with the shopping thing. I've also like, buying clothes. First of all, for me, like doing online shopping is like if I'm like getting like a bunch of clothes and trying them on, that's like all I can do for like the few weeks that I'm doing that or whatever, like the month that I'm doing that. That's like my activity is like and and not because like I'm buying like a million items, but because like an hour of like whatever, looking things up, trying things on, returning things, like that's a lot of effort for me.
Yeah.
So if I want to like refresh my wardrobe, like I'm not doing other things that I could be doing. And it feels like a huge project. And when for like normal people, just like buy the buy, you buy some things here and there, you shop here and there, as opposed to it being like the thing you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, and then like exactly like you, Rachel, like I have, I'll maybe like, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a month have like a social thing. So, and a lot of that is just like family, like, visiting my grandparents or something. So it's not like I'm going to all these events where I need like amazing clothes. So like,
Yeah.
I'll like have like several dresses that I like. And I'll be like, I only really need like two dresses because that's like all I'm gonna wear over the summer. Like I don't need like a million things. So like on that very specific thing, I really relate to what I mean, I literally have the exact same experience. But on the broader, I think the broader question is really good too. Like, what do we what do we hang on to of like our identity, of like practical stuff? And like what should we hang on to? What hopes do we hang on to? Um, we were talking about how like I was in the no, we were cleaning out our basement, and I had like my skis there. And you were saying like the same thing, like ski boots. It's like am I ever going to ski again? I
Yeah.
don't know. Like, what should I anticipate with this?
Yeah. I have random sports equipment, some of which I've picked up throughout the course of my illness, like during periods of time when I was doing better. Like I had a period in college when I was a lot more functional and I decided I wanted to get into cycling because the school I went to had a really big cycling community. And so I was like, I'm gonna get a road bike and I'm going to become a cyclist, which is like a big stretch. I think endurance athletics in general are really hard for people like us, but especially for me, I found that the exhilaration I experienced on a bike ride was always followed by this massive crash because it took so long for my body to recover. And I was still early enough in my illness where I didn't fully connect the dots as far as what the damage was of pushing my body to that extent. And that if it took so long to recover, that that was the sign that it was too much, not the fact that during the activity I could physically do it and I
Right,
physically felt good.
exactly.
It's like the curse of PEM that because it's delayed, you're not going to know that you did too much until after the fact. And the disproportionate response is so jarring and frankly surprising given how almost euphoric you feel while doing an activity. It's really awful. But I still have my bike. I don't really ride it. I can sort of go around my neighborhood a couple times, but I'm not going out on long 40-mile road bike rides.
Yeah.
But there's that
Yeah, I
part
mean,
of me that once, oh, sorry.
no, no, keep going, keep
I
going.
keep thinking I'm gonna get back on my bike. I keep thinking like, okay, this summer I'm gonna get back to biking. This is the year. It's
Yeah.
just such a, that goal has no meaning behind it. I have no control over that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I have that level of optimism.
Delusion.
Yeah. No, whatever. We don't know. I mean, that's
Yeah.
part of the situation. It's like,
Right.
I wish it was like at least like a sentence of like, okay, you have to live like this for like this many years.
Right. And then it'll be over.
There could be a cure or breakthrough in 3 months, or just, we'll be
Or
fine.
not. We don't know.
But I think like, yeah, earlier in my illness, I would I would just like bang my, and I still do this to some degree, but much less. I would just like bang my head against the wall, kind of. Like I
Hmm.
know, like, okay, if I like try to go for a run and like at this point, just like to level set, like if I walk more than like 5 to 10 minutes, I will not feel good later.
Hmm.
So my baseline for that is like relatively low. But when I was still kind of coming down from like, running regularly and like being an active person and realizing that like I couldn't, I just wouldn't accept that. I'd just be like, no, this time I'm just going to go for a run and I'm going to be fine. And
Yeah.
then, like you said, or like a long walk or something. And like during the experience, like you're like, this is
Yeah.
great. Maybe I'm getting better. Like this really seems to be working.
I can do
And
this.
and then you like inevitable, or like sometimes I would do it one day and then I would still kind of be okay the next day. So I would do
Hmm.
it 2 days in a row and I'd be like, great, something's changing,
Yeah.
And then it would be like the huge crash. And eventually kind of you get to a point where like certain things, at least, like there's still some things I try to do that maybe I shouldn't do, but some things I've like completely let go of, like any kind of like physical exertion, pretty much.
Hmm.
I'm not even going to try it.
Yeah.
What are things that you feel like you hold on to, like in terms of your like identity and like, or like the things that like you don't give up because they're like the most important? So when you've had to give up other things, like what things have you like that have you insisted to keep like as long as you can, kind of?
Yeah. In terms of identity, I think one of the hardest things to let go of was being active and being athletic. And I want to be clear that I was not some like superstar, like D1 college level athlete. I just grew up playing sports and being active was part of my life. And so I enjoyed it and it was a lot of fun. But when I got sick, I think one of the hardest things for me was that I didn't have the freedom and the autonomy to just go out for a run or go out for a bike ride and not think about the next hours, days, weeks, or whatever, what that would mean. I was used to just having the capacity to be like, oh, it's a nice day. I'm gonna go play tennis with my sister, or I'm gonna go on a walk, or when I visit, we're traveling, and so I'm gonna go on a hike with my family or something. I totally lost that capacity to decide to be active and not have to have the giant pro con list in my head about like, okay, well, I'm gonna be doing this thing at 2 p.m., so I have to nap at 11. But if I'm up at 12, then I need to eat, but then I'm gonna have to rest after that. And then if I want to do this other thing a couple days later, I'm gonna do that. Like that constant calculus is just exhausting, and I can no
Mhm.
longer have that. And then I'm on a more like just purely physical, almost vanity level. I gained a ton of weight when I got sick, and I just remember walking into a running store in college because I was helping my friend with something and thinking like, "Oh my gosh, I don't look like a runner. I used to be a cross-country runner and I used to be active. I don't look like that person anymore, but all these I feel just so uncomfortable right now because I don't look physically like the person I thought I was anymore. And I don't have any control over that. I can't decide, like,
Like get in shape.
yeah, that's out of reach.
Yeah. I mean, I I had the exact same experience and I was also on a medication that really that had weight gain as a side effect and that was actually like helping a lot with like my cognitive symptoms. So I didn't want to
Mhm.
go off it. So I gained like a ton of weight and like you just realize that going through the world and I wasn't like, like a few pounds overweight. I was really overweight.
Mhm.
And just like going through the world in that body is just like different. It's
Yeah.
just, I don't know. So yeah. And I also felt like I couldn't control, like my appetite was like so crazy. I'd never been like that before. But yeah, I totally get that. I think for me, another thing like unrelated to like physical movement and stuff is I kind of like had different parts of my personality as we all do, obviously. And, I had this like social fun part and I had this like more like intellectual kind of part. And that's like the part that was, like ambitious at work and like that aspect. And I almost felt like I had to choose between the two of them. Like I had bandwidth for like the basic things I needed to do around the house and like, trying to manage my um medical issues. And then there was just like a little bit left. And I kind of chose to take that little bit and use it on like social life and like more just like and kind of let go of any kind of intellectual stimulation,
Like
which
the White
is
Lotus,
weird. Say that again.
like watching White Lotus.
Exactly. That's the highest it gets. That's the absolute peak at this point. I'm not, and for a while, like I tried, I was like, I'm gonna take some like course online, or I'm gonna like do
Yeah.
this. And I do sometimes listen to like history classes online, but like for like significant degree, like that just part of my life just like is gone.
Yeah, I think the fact that you have a limited operational capacity or whatever. And you're constantly going to have these competing things and you can't do everything. And that's true of all humans, but it's an even more limited pie to begin with when you're in our case. And that's not even speaking about the people who are totally bedbound and very sensory sensitive and don't have the capacity for any of that. But in our case, we can do some things. We have to use our limited cognitive capacity to decide which of those things we're going to prioritize. And it can be really stressful. That was a big part of my therapy conversations in college was like, I know I don't have the energy level of my peers, but I still want to have a college experience, but I don't know what to do because I'm tired all the time. I can't keep up with everybody. I don't want my
Mhm.
grades to suffer. I don't know what to do with my energy. It was so stressful. And I've experienced at different points in my life prioritizing things. Like there were times in my late 20s when I put more energy into making friends and I had a really vibrant social life, but I didn't have the capacity to do other things. So I was stagnant with my work. I wasn't able to pursue more opportunities. On the flip side, over the past 2 years or so, like especially the first year since I moved home, I put in a ton of effort toward work because I was really dedicated to like, well, I'm not going to live with my parents forever. I want to be on my own. I want to advance in my career. I'm going to make progress this year. It was exhausting and it was also mentally draining because it came at the cost of a social life and I didn't have the capacity to make many friends because I was just drained at the end of the day, at the end of the week. I didn't have any energy left to make plans or see people.
It's awful.
Yeah.
And then when you add in like, I don't remember if we mentioned it, or like I think we talked about it a little bit on in the first episode, but then when you add in like the fact that we both like in theory would really like to have a life partner. And so we tried to date like kind of, but like the question of whether there's bandwidth for that is like constant. It's that's probably like my biggest like stressor in terms of like I don't have bandwidth to date. And then I'll like I won't do any dating. And then I'll be like, oh, I really want to like find someone. So then
Yeah.
I'll like start swiping and then I'll talk to people and I'll be like, oh my God, I don't have energy for this. Anyways, so it's just like I just can't. That's like an issue that like for years I just haven't found like peace or balance with. It's just like a constant problem. Um, yeah, but yeah, I mean it's just hearing you talk about um the the like ways that you just weren't able to have the things that you wanted and the things that like, you know, as much as you said, like everyone has limits, but like
Mhm.
having to have like such more severe limits, it's just like really sad. It's just sad. Like there's no other like way to describe it. Just like that's like one of the biggest tragedies, I feel like. We have like whatever, 10% of a life or 20% of a life or like, and it's just years and years of that, you know.
Yeah, and I think especially if you're somebody who's used to working hard at school, which is a very narrow situation with a lot of structure and a lot of unique quirks that don't necessarily replicate outside of that environment. But a lot of those circumstances involve limitations that we can control. Like, I didn't do well on that test, but I'm going to study harder, and so I'm going to do better. My times for that workout weren't great, so I'm going to focus on speed work and recovery and do some other things, and I'm going to do this. For the longest time in my early years, my like my way of distracting myself from my circumstances was I would still read like Runner's World. I mean, I obviously had no like intention of going out and training, but there was something really lovely and distracting and sort of escapist about reading about people who had these goals and they were able to accomplish them.
I love that too. I love like watching like Insta videos of people like getting in great shape or like I don't know, like influencers like traveling the world. Like
Yeah,
we've talked about how we both have like all this like life we would in theory lead or like
yeah.
these things we would do if we were healthy and whether that's like and it's kind of like this sick cycle where like you can think about that, but it's just like like you know you can't get there, so you're just like longing after or like whatever, like almost like spinning your wheels, like thinking
Hmm.
about these opportunities when there's
Yeah,
like no real point in it, I think. I don't know, but like you can
daydreaming.
indulge it for a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, living in a fantasy world. I think what it strikes me as is one of the things that gets talked about a lot in chronic illness land is the notion of acceptance. And I think there's this very high level concept of acceptance, which is accepting, like, I have a chronic illness. This is a part of my life. It's not a moral failing. This is real. It has certain implications. But also that acceptance is multifaceted and there are these daily almost tests or acts of acceptance that you have to engage in because it's not just this high level conceptual idea of like, oh yes, I have a chronic illness. It's like, can I also accept in the moment that my friend's getting married and I can't go to the wedding because it would involve a ton of travel and other things that are just not feasible to me? Or can I accept in the moment and also for possibly a really long time that I might not have a partner or somebody in my life while I'm watching my friends get married and start families. And there are all these ramifications that are downstream of the fact that we just don't have the energy to engage in a lot of normal life experiences. Even things as basic as like dealing with work challenges and the life skills that you develop as a result of handling conflict like that or other interpersonal relationships. It's not that I'm desperate to have a terrible boss or deal with coworkers, but I spend a lot of time on my own. So there are a lot of just situations like that that I just can't relate to because I don't know what it's like to be in those circumstances. And for me, acceptance is hard because it just comes at you in this relentless fashion. You are constantly going to be reminded of things that you don't have and can't have, and you're working through that in a way that isn't going to be depressing.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And we've talked about like, you know, just like exactly what you said, like when you're not out in the world, when you spend so much of your time resting, you're just constantly missing out on like learning, like, yeah, learning about yourself, like learning new skills, like just finding out about stuff, just like how in basic kind of like one of the cool things about like socializing or just like whether it's like going out with friends or like just kind of like in the world, you hear about things, you like have a new like impress, like something strikes you, you see something and you react to that and you like build something. And it's almost like because like day after day, month after month, year after year, we don't have as much of that. We have much less of that than the average person. We just like, there's just so much loss there. And
Hmm.
like, yeah, you're right. It's like this constant loss. It's not just like, okay, I accepted this one loss. Oh,
Yeah,
here's another one. Oh, here's
yeah,
another one.
yeah,
Um, I don't know. I think I'm in a lot of denial. Like, I think the way that I handle it is I, and we've talked about this too. We've talked about a lot of these things, but like, I don't, I don't notice it because it's hard to notice what you don't have. You don't see it. You're in your little bubble. You're living at home. You're, spending like, or at least for me, like a big chunk of the day, just like either in bed or on my phone or on the couch and just like chilling out.
hmm,
And but you don't like fully emotionally grasp that like that entire time, day after day, people are out in the world, like living their lives. So like the
hmm.
amount you're losing, you don't have access to that. And then sometimes we have these moments where, for whatever reason, we're like brought face to face with that. And then that's like, holy fucking shit. Like I'm missing so much. It's sad.
Yeah. It's it's like when people talk about something that seems like it's like a really universal experience, like I don't know, job interviews or I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that like most of our healthy friends have to handle. And I only know like the caricature version of it, which is like what I've seen from TV shows or social media or something. And so like I actually have no idea what it's like to experience a really technical interview if you're at a like later stage in your career and you need to pivot to a role that involves some like substantial knowledge of an area. Like I don't know what it's like to be in that position. I don't know what it's like to start out in one area and then find that you're actually interested in something else and then you develop those skills along the way and then you find yourself 10, 15 years down the road, you've developed this expertise and this professional accomplishment and something that you never even imagined. I still am like kind of holding on to this like high school version of like, oh, I think it would be fun to work in politics or I wanted to be an investment banker. Like, okay, well, my knowledge of that was from watching The West Wing and reading The Big Short, which are Very limited.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I think also like that sense of like there's still this life that can be lived. And I think it it starts like, I don't know if you feel like this, but for me, it starts at the exact moment that I started getting sick. And there's like this like turning point. And then
Mhm.
there's two paths. And there's the path that my life actually took. And then there's this other path. If I hadn't gotten sick or if I had rested enough to like
Yeah.
get well pretty quickly. And it's still out there, this idealized, like magical world.
Hmm.
And there's like still some sense I have that like if I just get better, um, okay, if I get better at 40 or first whatever, if I get better at 35, if I get better at 38, if I get better at 40, if I get better at 45, I'll just go back to age 24 when all of this started and I will just live that path and just okay, yeah, these many years I missed, but I'm back right from the beginning, which is just like such a, obviously that's not how it would happen.
Hmm.
But like that's kind of my wishful thinking of how it would happen. But I do want to say, I mean, one thing that I think we're a little bit like less aware of because we're in our situation is how much like loss and sadness and problems everyone has in their life, like that maybe that are completely different than ours and that also cause them to not fully experience. It's not like, we're in this situation and there's all these people who are just like, living this great life with like all of these aspects. Like people are in like abusive relationships or they lose loved ones and they fall into like a horrible depression, not to mention the people who are like don't have their basic needs met or are like in war zones or um like struggling so much financially or more prosaically in jobs they dead end jobs they hate and they can't leave because of like financial reasons or there's just like I feel like there's some lucky like it's not like misfortune is equally distributed. It's not. Some people are way luckier than other people,
Hmm.
but not that many people are so lucky that they don't have devastating things that have really fucked with their life.
Yeah.
So, we have ours and it's worse than a lot of people's and it's better than probably a lot of people's. And I don't know, that awareness that maybe it's like kind of gives you this like philosophical sense of like, you know, we got
Yeah.
the hand we were dealt.
Yeah, we're gonna play it as best as we can. I think there's
Yeah.
a zooming out that happens when you think about like what you described. So you have the path that our lives took. We have this inflection point, right? Where we got sick, we got the diagnosis, whatever, our lives changed dramatically. And there's the path that we imagine our lives would have gone on, and then there's the path that we took. And as we get further along, those roads diverge even more. But I'm constantly reminding myself, like, this other path doesn't exist. It's just a figment of my imagination. So when I'm lying in bed, lamenting my own health problems, thinking like, oh, my life would be so much better if I weren't sick, I'd be doing this. Like, I don't have any evidence or whatever. I can kind of imagine what that would have been like, but in my head, it's this like pain-free existence full of travel and like doing triathlons and like all kinds of things that may or may not have happened, but they probably wouldn't have panned out the way I'm thinking they would in my head. And I think about every time, like when my health improves a little bit. I've had periods of time when I've gotten worse, and I've had periods of times when things get better. And the paradox of getting better is that I have more capacity, but I also am more aware of what I've been missing out on. It's not as if getting healthy or having a little bit more energy is going to solve all my problems. It'll introduce new problems, but it'll also introduce new joys. And
Mhm.
I think I have to remind myself of that when I'm frustrated with my current situation because we both know plenty of people who are quote unquote healthy but have all kinds of struggles because that's just the human condition.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's just like a balance to hold all of that at once, because it's still way better to be healthy
Yeah.
than
For the
to
record,
be
we
in.
don't recommend just being chronically
Yeah.
ill.
So you kind of hold the fact that it's not that everything would be perfect, but
Yeah.
on the other hand, like you can't you can't kind of gaslight yourself and be like, well, everyone has problems, so it would also be bad.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean,
We don't know.
it
I guess that's the thing. We'll never know the
I
answer.
know. That's hard also. It's just like, yeah, like you said, that other reality, it's not just like out there.
Hmm.
It will never exist.
Yeah.
Like,
It's not real. Which
yeah.
is hard to grapple with. But also, I guess for me, the dealing with the health issues, these big questions over time, what provides a sense of not quite resolution, but at least some sense of peace about it is at least getting to engage and talk about these things. I think that's a big reason why we're doing this podcast in the first place, is because all these thoughts are jumbling around in my head constantly, but to actually get them out, verbalize them, exchange ideas with another person who's in a similar circumstance gives me a little bit more perspective around like, oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting, but there's another way to think about it, or there's this other perspective I'm not considering, whatever it is. And that's not something that I think I understood when I first got sick because it was just so isolating and I felt so different from everyone else. I didn't get that built-in support network because I didn't have a disease that came with like a bunch of awareness with it.
Yeah, completely. Like the amount of like comfort I get from like talking to other people like you and other friends who are in a similar situation and just like understand, it's just like, and not going through it alone. It's just
Mhm.
like it's like everything to be able to have that. And somehow, I don't know how, like through, because I think I've been open about my illness, and I know you post a lot on Twitter, and I post on Twitter, and I've posted on Facebook, and I'm just like, I made the decision to be really open. Somehow I've made like many, not, I don't know what many is, but like I have several friends with this illness that those friendships have deepened a lot over time. And I don't know, it's just like, just having people who understand is just like, it's just, you don't have to like solve any problems. You don't have to like say the right thing. It's just having someone else who's just like, yo,
Yeah, it's, I understand that that can be taxing for people. And I think having alternative methods of communication, whether it's sending texts or emails or things that aren't as energy intensive as phone calls or in-person visits or video calls or whatever, but it's an important part of the healing process, or rather the coping process, if you have access to it, because otherwise you get cut off naturally from a lot of the community that you would normally be around because you're not going to be working in person or in school or
yeah,
whatever you're used to do.
yeah. And that's like a whole topic for another
We'll add that to the
podcast
ever-growing
episode.
list.
Yeah, exactly. Like just the alienation from the healthy people that and the people we would have otherwise met, and the people we do have in our lives, but are living very different lives from us and stuff. So.
Yeah, how we're navigating that. Well, this has been another great discussion. I'm so excited we've been able to continue this.
Me too. This has been a great conversation. And just one last thing that this conversation just makes me think
Hmm.
is just like, I don't know. I'm just sending like so much love and solidarity to the people who are in a much more extreme situation than us, because, we're talking about the challenges we're facing, which are very real and very worthy of discussion. But I just like, as we're talking, I'm like thinking of people who, yeah, can't communicate at all, who can't leave their bed, who are like constantly in like feel in a state of like feeling awful. And I don't know, I just feel like I just want to express like solidarity to those people in our ME community, and that we're thinking of you and we're fighting for you also, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't speak from that from experience because I don't know what it's like, but I hope at some point we can. I would love to have a therapist or another health professional on who has maybe had experience working with patients like that or with the families and caregivers of patients like that so we could talk a little bit more about that world because while we obviously have the capacity to share our limited experience, there are people that are much more limited um, in their ability to do these things and to share their experiences. And that means that people don't hear about that as much, which is really sad because it's a really big portion of these complex chronic conditions.
Yeah.
Well, it was great talking to you. We'll do it again next week.
Sounds great. See you next week. This was a great convo.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Bye.
Bye.